Right, this area here is the top of Blakeley Street, Charter Street, where we built St Michael's Square. Again, with the square is the church, and again we know from the documentary evidence that when the church was built, even though it was a fairly ugly brick church by sort of late architecture, there was a nice carriage drive up there and people would come out of the town to go to the new church. So when some of these properties were built, it was a nice part of town. Hopefully you can make out sort of, at the top of the brick walls there, they sort of start leafing out. That's the remains of the vaulting of the cellars. That was St Michael's Tavern on the corner, and that's marked on the maps from the 1840s, sort of marked by name, and those are basically some of the cellars for the tavern. Can't go right to the front wall unfortunately because they have the street in our cellars, but bizarrely enough, I think those are the only two rooms we haven't found bottles in. But it does actually make sense because with it being a pub cellar, they've been clearing it out regularly, whereas the other cellars, when they demolish them, all sorts of rubbish are going to. So a fantastic array of bottles, mainly broken, but it's amazing how many ones do survive intact, and that gives us fantastic information about local life. We've done similar sort of housing projects in Ancoats and Salford, and every time, even though we're in such a very small area, Ancoats to Salford, about a mile, we're sort of halfway between, we get different bottle companies, different brewing companies, each different excavation. The main one we get here from Hollyhurst and down on Ducey Street there. And this tells us, really good information about life. I'm sure some of you have seen the bottle, but dandelion and burdock bottles. We've got the bottled water. Bottled water is not something that Perrier invented in the 1980s for the yuppies in London. In the 18 and 1900s, we didn't have a good solid water supply, so people would drink bottled water because it was the only sort of safe, clean water you could get. Everyone's favourite gin bottle, we found a few of those. Gin, I think, is a drink of choice because of its strength to price ratio. Living in here in the mid-19th century, life was exceptionally good, and I think the odd gin would have made it slightly more bearable. The good thing about this area we've got here is it really shows how the land rises quite sharply, and it sort of explains why we've lost so much of the site, because it is rising up quite steeply. This goes down to the River Irk in the bottom, which is now sort of heavily canalised, but originally was sort of one of the lifebloods of Manchester, and again turned into a filthy sewer basically. But to start with, it was where all the industry grew up, the tanneries and the dye works. They all needed the water out of the river. Interestingly, there was a sort of Rivers Pollution Act passed in 1844 that basically said, it's no longer acceptable to dump all your sewage and all your works waste into the river. You can't do this anymore, unless you live in an area where that would have a negative effect on the industry. So basically the whole land is an exemption to that law, and it doesn't apply, so the rivers continue to get dirtier and filthier. There's some fantastic documentary accounts of, particularly on Salford. You've got all the dye works on the bend around Salford Crescent. The river, amazing colours apparently. One of the great things we can find out by excavating an area like this is we can sort of work out how it phases, how the buildings changed over time. This wall we've got in the middle here looks fairly similar to all the others. This was originally the back room, and house in the front of the square, but at some point it's been divided into two yards. Fairly early on, we started to create some kind of water units. After we turned it into 2 yards, the fireplace basically just turned into an outside cold store. You know by 1922 that was a shop, so this is sort of standard housing accommodation. It's to and fro. There's strange things going on in this room. The floor's completely disappeared. We've got various different levels going on. So again, it all adds to sort of the richness of what's going on. A lot of stuff's damaged again by these huge water pipes going through. It must have been a massive undertaking to actually finally get around to sorting the sewage out in these areas. This area I'm standing on, this has been infilled. The original level of it is quite a bit lower. So this has probably all been infilled, probably prior to that going in, and maybe to find a set of stairs down here. Now, these two rooms in the corner, these parts of the 24 Michael Square. I believe some of your two separate people who said their ancestors had lived in this house. It's amazing. It's one of the great reasons why we have these open days, so we can sort of talk to yourself and get this sort of rich history that ties it all together to the community nowadays. This was built in one large house, quite big merchant's house. Again, we've got evidence in the wall of the building of an original entrance and a window. So again, built with domestic cellar coming provided. There was a door here, but again, fairly early on that's been blocked. And our sort of current hypothesis on that is that as the area deteriorated and the need for more